Okay, hello everyone. My name's Nick. I'm an engineer at YLD, and I'm going to talk about this book. It's called The Unicorn Project. This is a book by Gene King. A bit of background. I'm a software engineer. I've been for 25 years or something. I've been at YLD for 6 months. I work mainly in APIs. I'm a back-end engineer, travel, payments, compliance. I like writing code, solving problems. I like simple code, easy to understand, easy to deploy, and I want it to deliver value to the client and the customer. And this is why these books, the Unicorn Project and the books surrounding them, really resonated with me. But before I talk about Unicorn Project, I'm going to spend a little bit of time explaining some of the context around it. Some of you may already have read these or know about them, but I'm just going to sort of go through the background of these books. This is where it all started. This is written by Gene Kim. It's the Phoenix Project. Gene Kim is a part of a group of people who started to innovate in the kind of DevOps area in early sort of 2010s. This was released in 2013. This was followed by the DevOps Handbook in 2016, and then by this book called Accelerate in 2018. These books are basically about lean and agile software delivery. They lay out principles and practices that sort of underpin a lot of the stuff that we try to do today to deliver software quickly and efficiently to customers. And while the DevOps Handbook and Accelerate are kind of tech books in the traditional sense, they're like proper technical books. You wouldn't take it to bed and sort of read it as bedtime reading. The Phoenix Project reads it's written like a novel. I actually read the Phoenix Project on the beach on holiday. If you've ever read Douglas Coupland, does anyone know Douglas Coupland? It kind of reads like a Douglas Coupland novel, like Microserfs or Generation X or something. It's just really enjoyable to read. So basically, the Phoenix Project introduces us to a struggling tech company called Parts Unlimited. The company sells automotive parts online, and this company has all the problems that we've probably all encountered over the years. It includes like the one guy who basically knows everything about the tech stack, and if he disappeared, the whole company would collapse because no one else would know what to do. They have a 2-year-old project that they can't get out the door. And it's basically that the book is about how they fix these problems. It basically uses the analogy of software engineering as a kind of comparing to like a manufacturing plant or an assembly line as to how you deliver software. The project that they cannot get delivered is the Phoenix Project. And eventually they do, but I'm not going to talk any more about that because it's a book that you should read, and that's not what this talk is about. Okay, so we go along to 2019, and the Unicorn Project is released. Again, it's a very readable book. It goes back to Parts Unlimited company, same characters. They've now got the Phoenix Project has actually been released, but they have a real kind of horrible, toxic working environment. And it focuses on this developer called Maxine. And basically, the Unicorn Project is about developers as opposed to kind of DevOps, which the Phoenix Project was kind of more DevOps related. So without sort of giving away too much of the plot, the problems within the engineering team in that company are kind of fixed by the introduction of the 5 ideals. And these 5 ideals, which are introduced throughout the book using examples, but in a very readable kind of way. I'm going to go through these 5 ideals now. In the book, these are kind of introduced slowly and nicely and as part of a really engaging kind of story. But I'm just going to kind of rattle through them quite quickly. They start off fairly straightforward and simple and easy to understand, and then they get more complicated as you go along. So the first ideal is locality and simplicity. So Gene Kim will say, design things so that we have locality in our systems and the organizations that build them. This basically means, and we have most of this where we work these days, we need to uncouple applications from each other, keep them separate. We want engineers to make and release local code changes in a single location without impacting other teams. It means we can just get on with our work without having to coordinate with other teams. And the more people are involved in things, the more complex it becomes. So it's that kind of like sort of the microservice product teams type of way of working. So the second ideal, focus, flow, and joy. This is basically, again, the quote is work in small batches, ideally single piece flow, fast and continual feedback. It's basically when engineers are able to focus on writing code with minimum kind of dependencies. It creates a flow of value and therefore joy. We're supposed to enjoy what we're doing. So you feel productive, you have happy clients, you enjoy your work. Again, fairly obvious, but you don't always have that. Third ideal, improvement of daily work. So the Gene Kim quote, when technical debt is treated as a priority and paid down and architecture is continuously improved and modernized, teams can work with flow, delivering better value sooner, safer and happier. So this is basically address technical debt and architecture, make sure the engineer's work can be done with as little interruption and impediment as possible. This is a tricky one for us because leadership team generally always wants a new product. So it kind of pushes time away from us being able to work on technical debt and spend time tidying our code and keeping our code nice and up to date. However, as engineers, it's our responsibility to kind of try to insist that time is set aside for non-functionals and technical debt and CI/CD and automation testing and things that actually make our jobs more fun because we know we can release things safer and we have a better time sort of doing our work. Okay, so the fourth ideal, psychological safety. The quote here is, when team members feel safe to talk about problems can not only be fixed but prevented. So team members should feel safe to talk about issues, ask questions, express fears without feeling there may be negative consequences. You'd kind of think this was the most basic thing for a tech company to get right, but the last two roles prior to YLD, we had psychological safety, and then it kind of went away, and then it came back, and it depends on the culture in the company and the people who are in the leadership team. There's not really much that we can do about this, but it's really something that's incredibly important to be part of the culture of an engineering team. Okay, the fifth ideal, customer focus. So basically, customer focus relates to the difference between core and context. This was the hardest of the ideals for me to kind of get my head around. So this basically relates to core versus context, which is defined by a chap called Geoffrey Moore. You can find lots about this online, but the basic idea is that core is what customers are willing and able to pay for. So it's the bread and butter of your business, whereas context is everything else. So HR, payroll, marketing development. These context systems are essential, but the customer doesn't actually care about them. So context must never kill core. There's a quoted example, often quoted example of core versus context, and understanding what represents value to a customer using Domino's Pizza. So basically the question is, what's the core value that Domino's Pizza presents to a customer? Does anyone, what is Domino's Pizza's core value? Diarrhea. It's it's basically delivering pizza within 30 minutes. It's not the actual making of a pizza. It's actually the customer experience and delivering pizza. So basically, Domino's Pizza's core activities are those that directly provide competitive advantage. So, provide a pizza in 30 minutes. Anyone can make a pizza, probably better than Domino's, but they can't necessarily get it to you in time. So there's some links, which I was kind of hoping to have as a QR code, but it didn't happen, but they'll appear somewhere at some point. But basically, you can go and find there's a YouTube video of Gene Kim talking through this book and the 5 ideals in a much better way than I can or have done. But it's really good. The books can be found, some of them are actually free, I think. You can actually download probably the DevOps Handbook and Accelerate as PDFs. But that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nick, for your presentation. There are any questions about the presentation? Okay, cool. So, go ahead.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
So you'd say that this one is not merely for developers, but rather for the whole company.
It's,
right?
The Unicorn project is kind of focused on developers because it follows the story of a developer.
I'm talking about the ideals. I mean, so let's say a developer cannot, let's say, handle technical debt if he can't, let's say, management keeps pushing for new features, for example. So
that's actually always the question. That's always the question that comes up when we talk about these 5 ideals. My view is that you should insist that these things. I mean, it sounds crazy, but you can insist, and if you've brought attention to it and it still doesn't happen, at least you've tried, you know.
Right.
But yeah, bizarrely, the last time I did this talk, someone brought that exact question up.
Right, fair.
Thank you very much. Any more?
You said that Unicorn project is like easy to read, like a story, yeah?
It is, yeah.
And the same for Phoenix project?
Phoenix project is the same, yeah.
All right.
The others are much more
technical.
Yeah, with examples and yeah. But I mean, the Phoenix project, you can flip through it. It's just it's a fun book to read. It's like a novel, but it has lots of. I had some quotes here, but I'm not going to go into them now. But basically, as you're reading the book, there'll be little paragraphs where it'll like illustrate an example of something that will just you'll suddenly think, oh wow, you know that. You know, yes, okay. Actually, no, I am gonna read one. So basically, collaboration, which is a big sort of thing of mine. But Maxine is basically looking at the workspace she's been brought into, which is really horrible. It's all cubicles, and everyone's sitting there. And she's basically saying that individuals need to interact with each other to create new knowledge and basically collaborate with each other. So it's little things like this that sometimes aren't present in an engineering team and really should be there. And these are kind of dotted throughout the book, and they're kind of part of the story. But you read them, and it's just you're like, oh yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, if you're gonna have and read just instructions, you will be overwhelmed.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Well, if there are no more questions, maybe I will just try to ask this one, which is, so Nick, from all of the 5 ideals, which one you think it's like the hardest one to adopt in an organization?
I think that because you have no control over it, psychological safety is the hardest one, because it can just depend on, I mean, one of the companies I was referring to, I probably shouldn't name, but basically, we had a really great CEO, we had a really great CTO at the start, and then that changed, and we had a CTO that just wasn't interested, and you just didn't feel you could say stuff. You couldn't talk about things openly, and that's the most important thing. You should be able to complain about stuff and say, "This is broken, that doesn't work," and people, without fear of repercussions.
Okay. Okay. And how do you feel like, for example, trying to bring like the AI layer into it? So do you feel like it's harder now to introduce those ideals into, now that you have the AI on top of it, on the organizations, or what do you feel like?
I think my experience at the moment with the client I'm with YLD, we're using AI to do things that actually help. For example, when we create a ticket, it'll go away and actually do your risk analysis for you and do your test scenarios for you. So it's kind of like, it takes away the time for you to actually do it yourself, but also because it's in the ticket, it's not easy for anyone to say, don't spend time doing that. And just don't bother with too many tests. But you've got, well, look, there's these test scenarios that I have to do.
Right.
So it kind of makes that kind of thing easier.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Any more for anyone? Maria? Sorry.
Question from a non-tech person. Do you think, if it's a spoiler, you don't need to answer, but from your experience and from the book as well, do you think it's possible to have all 5? Or is it more likely that trying to have one will override another? Like, what's your experience?
I think that, I don't know. I mean, it's like, I mean, I don't think I've been somewhere that's had all 5 ideals, because where I am now, the deployments take a long time, and you don't have that fast feedback loop and all that kind of thing. So I think, but that's probably the least thing. That's the one thing that's that makes it. That's the one thing I'd rather have that missing than any of the others, because you can still write code and you can still, it's just a bit of a pain to actually deploy stuff.
So would you say having all 5 is a matter of personal preference at the end of the day, or
you can't control it, really? You can't control all of it. Like, I mean, if you don't have psychological safety at a company, you as an engineer can't make that happen. Yeah. It's got to be part of the culture.
Agreed. Thank you.
Seems like you're kind of saying you would rather. Yeah. But it seems like you're saying you'd rather prioritize the one, like, because you keep repeating psychological safety. So I'm assuming it's in your mind that's very important.
Yeah.
Interesting. I mean, I agree, especially since because I understand, because I read a paper about creating a space just for innovation. But part of the DevOps mantra, DevOps manifesto, is like you have to allow engineers the opportunity to make mistakes, but allowing them to also make mistakes creates opportunities for innovation. Do you think that should be like, because like you said, DevOps is a cultural thing, right?
Yeah.
Right? So do you need to create a separate space for engineers to make mistakes, or would you need to actually create two spaces for engineers to make mistakes and also innovate? But wouldn't the one kind of help each other, wouldn't it?
It's a tricky one, because the last place I worked at, we had CI/CD that was literally like, you merge something to main and it goes to production. So the onus is completely on you to do your testing and make sure that, because you can innovate as much as you like, but if you break production, it's like that's going to come back on you. So it's kind of, I mean, where I am now, you need approvals, you need to do TPC. I mean, Luis knows, but basically, you have to go through steps in order to do a production release. Whereas my last place, you could literally write something, get your friend, the worst thing was pair programming. So you'd be pairing with someone, you'd write the code, they'd approve the PR, and it's out there without anyone else looking at it. So the trust is 100% on you. And I don't know which I prefer, to be honest.
No, it's interesting you said that, though. It seems like automation just kind of creates that space where the person can make. Automation of testing.
Yeah.
Creates that space where a person can make mistakes, but not necessarily break the entire code base. But still, I think
you've got to be allowed the time to write those automation tests so that you've got enough tests for you to feel comfortable that your pipeline is going to pick up anything that you've missed?
Yeah, test
we're
suites
human, you know,
have
we like
coverage
to-
too, so
Yeah.
most test suites have coverage.
Right, thank you very much. Any more for anyone? No? Okay, so in that case, thank you very much, Nick.
Thank you.
Round of applause, everybody.